Hello everybody and welcome to Lesson 4. Today we're going to be covering epithelial and connective tissue. The first video is going to be on all the different types of epithelial tissue, and then video number 2 will focus on connective tissue. So first, let's just review quickly what a tissue is. So when we look on our hierarchy, our organizational hierarchy, it goes cells and then tissues. So tissues are more complex than cells. Tissues are when groups of tissues come together to do a particular function. And then these tissues make up organs, which then make up organ systems. So it's very important that we first study the tissues so we get a good idea of what we are made of. So the first type of tissue we're going to talk about is epithelial tissue. You're going to see it called epithelium at times. Just know that that means that they are epithelial cells and epithelial tissue. So back in our cell diversity lecture, we talked about how epithelial cells line and cover organs, and that's exactly what epithelial tissue does. It's going to line, cover organs, and it also helps to make up glandular tissue. So just a few of the functions of epithelial tissue. One is protection. This would be really present when we look at our skin. Our skin outer layers are made of epithelial tissue. The inside of our mouth is all epithelial tissue. Absorption. This is going to be in your digestive tract. You have a type of connective tissue, or I'm sorry, epithelial tissue that helps you absorb. Filtration in the kidneys, and then secretion. This helps make up some of your glandular tissue like your sweat glands. So what are some of the special characteristics of epithelium? How can you tell that it's epithelial tissue? One is they fit very closely together in sheets, especially if they are stratified epithelium, meaning more than one layer of cells. They have tons of desmosomes and tight junctions. So if you remember that from our organelle lecture, desmosomes and tight junctions pretty much glue cells together and anchor them to each other to resist a lot of wear and tear. And since epithelial tissue lines and covers organs, it makes sense that they have a lot of these desmosomes and tight junctions because they basically are anchored down to lower tissue and can resist a lot of that mechanical stress. They also have an unattached surface called an apical surface. This means that it's just facing out into air, into something exposed. So for example, the outer layers of your skin are exposed to the outside environment. So the apical surface of that epithelial tissue isn't going to be attached to anything. It's going to be just facing the outer portion. Then it has a basement membrane. Basically, it's going to sit on a material that is secreted by connective tissue cells below it, and it's going to rest on this kind of structureless material. It's a lot of times just going to be nutrients and kind of a gluey structure. Epithelial tissue is avascular. This means that it does not have their own blood supply. It actually has to get nutrients from the tissues below because there is no blood flow going to this tissue. So here's just a picture really quick. I wanted to show a few things. So we talked about this apical surface. So this is the epithelial cell portion that faces the outer environment. So this is actually a digestive system cell. So this is going to be facing the inside of your intestines. So this is just going to be air where the intestines are. This right here is a picture of your trachea, which is your windpipe, and you can see that they've labeled the basement membrane really easily for you. So this is all epithelial tissue here. This is all connective tissue here. So in between there is a basement membrane kind of gluing this epithelial tissue down to this connective tissue. And then over here, I just wanted to show you that there's an example of a tight junction. Remember, those literally glue cells together so nothing can really get through them. This also shows the apical portion of that cell facing out into the air, and then here would be the basement membrane portion down here. So now let's actually get into the different types of epithelium. Epithelial tissue has two names. The first word in that name is going to be how many layers of cells it has. So it's either going to be simple epithelium or stratified epithelium. If it's simple epithelium, it means it has one single layer of cells. If it's stratified epithelium, it's going to have more than one layer of cells. And this is where we see those cells really stack each other in sheets. The second name is going to be the shape of the cell. So if it's squamous or squamous, you can kind of hear it both ways depending on your professor. I say squamous. It's going to be very flat, scale-like cells. Columnar are going to be column-shaped cells, really tall and skinny. And then cuboidal are going to be cubed-shaped cells. And you can see over here I have some examples. These are all simple epithelium because they're a single layer of cells. And it kind of just shows you the cell shape. So squamous is the flat and scaly-like. That would be like the surface of your skin. Cuboidal is going to be cube-shaped, and columnar is going to be tall and skinny. So our first epithelial tissue type we're going to talk about is simple squamous. Simple squamous is going to be one single layer of squamous cells. We're going to find this in areas where we have to have a lot of gas exchange and rapid diffusion occur. So for example, simple squamous is going to be found on the inside of your lungs. That way oxygen can very easily enter into the bloodstream and carbon dioxide can exit. It also forms all the walls of your capillaries because the same thing is kind of happening there. We're having nutrient and gases exchange at a very, very quick rate. So we want it to go really fast and we don't want to expend any energy doing this. So here's some examples of our simple squamous. So here's our simple squamous in the alveoli, which are our little air sacs in the lungs. And you can see it's a very thin layer of tissue. Here's a cell, here's a cell, here's a cell. So it's just one layer kind of these cells. And then this is a really good kind of top view that just shows you the shape of those cells. They're very, very scale-like. Okay, then we have simple cuboidal epithelium. Simple cuboidal is going to be one layer of cube-shaped cells. A lot of times we find these in some glands and ducts, but this picture right here is really showing it in the kidney. And this is a tube, a kidney tubule, so this is where filtration of urine is happening. And surrounding it, you can see that nice cube-shaped cell. So there's one cell layer on one side of the tubule and one cell layer on the other side of the tubule. Next is simple columnar epithelium, and you're going to hear a lot about this tissue type. This is one we talk about a lot when we get into the digestive system. It's a single layer of the very column-shaped cells. They include a very special type of cell called goblet cells, and let me show you why they got the name goblet cells. If you look at this artist rendition, it looks like a goblet, which was one of those cups you would drink back in medieval times, a goblet. So that's where they got the name from. And these goblet cells are secreting mucus inside of your digestive tract. So these cells are really important for secreting mucus and also helping with absorption inside your entire digestive tract. Okay, here's another picture of the simple columnar. This is actually in the digestive tract, so you can see how tall and skinny these cells are. Here's the apical surface, so this is facing out into the intestines, so this would be where the food is being kind of broken down and getting absorbed into those cells. And then your basement membrane is down here. Okay, stratified squamous epithelium. So now we're moving on to the stratified. Stratified squamous epithelium is the most common stratified epithelium. We talk a lot about this cell type when we get into the integumentary system, because this is going to be what's found on the outer layer of skin. And the cells at the surface are very, very flat and scale-like, because a lot of times they're dead. And then as we move down further away, more deep into the body, the cells are going to be a little bit more cuboidal or columnar. So we find the stratified squamous in areas where we have a lot of wear and tear. So the outer portion of your skin, your esophagus, and your mouth. All right, stratified cuboidal and columnar, we're literally going to spend about 10 seconds on this. It's really rare in the body. We won't really be talking a lot about it, but just know that it's found mainly in very large ducts and large glands. Next, we have transitional epithelium. I think this is actually really interesting. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. So transitional epithelium is modified stratified squamous. It is really cool because it can start out as a lot of layers. That's why it's stratified squamous. But then as the organ stretches, the cells can actually slide past each other to the point where they can become a single layer of cells. And this is really important in the organs that it's found in. It's found in the urinary system. So as you are filtering and creating urine, that urine is filling up the urinary bladder. As the urinary bladder fills, it's going to start expanding. So that's where you find this transitional epithelium. It literally helps the urinary bladder expand, and the cells are sliding past each other to the point that they can be a single layer. So here is some transitional epithelium. This one particularly is in the urinary bladder. So this would be a relaxed urinary bladder right now because you can see there's a lot of layers of cells right there. But as this fills up with urine, okay, as urine is filling up into the bladder, this all expands. And the cells are going to slide past each other to the point that they're a single layer of cells. The last type of epithelium we're going to talk about is glandular epithelium. So these are going to make up your glands. And glands are cells that are going to make and secrete a product. A lot of times we see exocrine glands being like the oil glands on your skin. We also see sweat glands. So they're basically being released out into a surface. Endocrine glands are going to be glands that secrete hormones, which are proteins that enter into the bloodstream. So basically lining all of these glands and making up a lot of these glands is going to be that glandular epithelium. Okay, and this is a picture of the prostate. That's one of the male sex organs. And within this prostate, you can see here's a bunch of glandular epithelium that's going to help secrete and make hormones like testosterone. So that was it for epithelium tissue. We're going to get into connective tissue on the next video, so make sure you have your note guide completely filled out and then move on to your connective tissue video.